Allow me to share with you the Sunday that completely upended my existence. The silence was almost derogatory, the kind of silence that seemed contrived, as if the world was waiting for me to cease acting like everything was all right. My age was 37. Married. South Carolina's Charleston. No children. Travis. My husband of almost 9 years had that endearing, boy next door quality, and his life was stable enough that I felt I was playing on medium difficulty, grinned broadly, said everything correctly, understood when to stop talking and when to pour wine. That seemed like love to me, or sufficiently close. Then, one Sunday afternoon, with his family at his side and the aroma of cheap barbecue filling the air, he met my gaze and said, "You didn't need that money." We all agreed. Something in my brain cracked as I read that sentence, as if a cable had broken, as if my inner alarm clock had finally ceased snoozing. The world fell silent. One question was all I could hear, bouncing around inside my head. Who the devil are we? I'm getting ahead of myself, though. Let me go back in time. My father passed away 7 months before to that day. Stroke. Not a warning. He called me 1 minute to inquire if I would be spending Easter at home. Then he was on the floor of the kitchen. My sole parent was him. Technically, my mother is still alive. But on an emotional level, she passed away years ago. I was reared by my father, kept me safe. We shared a subtle complex bond that some girls have with their military fathers. He was a fastidious man, labeling every Tupperware with a Sharpie and masking tape, and washing Ziplocs to reuse. Despite his lack of possessions, he left me what he had, one policy of life insurance, $187.00 so. It's not crazy, but it feels like a barrier between me and mayhem. For you, when you truly need it, he wrote in his will. I was like skin to that line. I didn't spend it on a car or a kitchen that looked like it was updated on Pinterest. Not even my broken phone was replaced. I created a savings account with a good yield, solely in my name. Did I tell Travis everything? No. Was I lying? No, too. I just mentioned that it was a bit from my dad. He didn't exert pressure, didn't inquire, simply instructed me to rest and embraced me when I sobbed. Don't be concerned, he said. I have us. I really did want to believe that. I resigned from my work following the funeral as well, not because I was now wealthy, but rather because my employer gave me a direct look and said, everyone ultimately loses a parent. Don't let that be an excuse for poor performance. I can't recall what I replied. Most likely nothing. I simply left. Once more, Travis said everything correctly, kept me listened, prepared omelets, advised me to rest for a while. So I did. I did some cleaning, a great deal, go over all of my dad's letters again, kept the lights on while I slept, just to hear my name uttered. I called my mother. I became strange, little, and compulsive when I was grieving. However, Travis, he remained steady, continued to work. When I handed him coffee, he continued to smile, continued to be good. I was blind to the fissures. Not until he began shutting his office door twice, not when he dismissed my inquiries concerning our financial situation, not even after I discovered that he was transferring things from my laptop for backups. I had no desire to see. I wasn't yet prepared, but on the day everything fell apart. It happened gradually at first, and then suddenly, we were visiting his sister Monica's house in Fort Worth. Grilled ribs, a large lawn, children running barefoot, and country music blaring from an ancient speaker. Travis was accompanied by his entire family, Carol, his mother, Monica, Jenna, his other sister, their husbands, their children. It seemed typical. No. In the heat, the long flowered dress I was wearing stuck to me. It was too humid to suspect anything and too hot to fight. Carol, who was sitting next to me and was drinking iced tea, asked me in a casual manner, Olivia, according to Travis, your father left you a substantial sum. Is that accurate? I blinked, grinned courteously, nodded. He went out a little. Jenna laughed loudly. A little. He stated it was nearly $200, girl. I went cold. They were aware of it, not simply at the number. I had never uttered the number aloud, not even to Travis. I answered carefully, It's what my dad left me, no matter how much. All I'm trying to do is use it sensibly. Monica leaned closer. So why not lend a hand to the family? We spoke with Travis. We could open that laundry on West High if we had a little more money. The region is flourishing. I turned to face Travis. He avoided looking at me, merely gave his neck a scratch. You discussed my money with them. I spoke quietly, steady, razor thin. He gave a shrug. It was only a concept. You're not really using it, Carol added, grinning as if she were presenting me with a casserole. I simply believe that we could all proceed together if you shared a little. It was like dry toast trapped in my throat. Could you share a bit? Moving forward together, this was not a discussion. A verdict was rendered. I got to my feet. Said I would assist with cleanup. Nobody volunteered to accompany me. The drive home is not anything I recall. Yes, I do recall the shower. It seemed like hours as the water ran. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I simply stopped experiencing any emotions because I knew in my heart. They had made up their minds beforehand. They didn't inquire. They waited for me to give in. And I discovered something more terrible than treachery that evening. They believed I wouldn't defend myself. I took our Labrador, Milo, to the veterinarian the following morning. He had spent the entire night vomiting. I hadn't slept. I had the impression that my head was filled with static and cotton. I checked the balance on my banking app while the receptionist printed the estimate. $0.36. I re-energized. The same thing. A savings account. $0. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I left. Climbed inside the vehicle, drove quietly home. I immediately gave Travis a call. Where's my money? My voice trembled as I asked. He hesitated, as though I were being irrational. Don't freak out, Olivia. I moved the funds to our joint account. We have already discussed this. Everyone was in agreement. I went crazy. Who is it, everyone? Why did you have the right to? You're not using it. You're not working. We could have done something big for the family, he interrupted. Before I shattered the phone, I hung up. I then took a seat on the floor and gazed at the wall. I wasn't dramatic, and I wasn't dumb. I had just witnessed my husband squander her deceased father's final gift and justify it as a family decision. And I came to the frightening realization this was not an impromptu moment. This was prearranged. I didn't get any sleep that evening, refused to eat, weep, or shout. Staring at the printout I had discovered in Travis's desk drawer, I sat at the kitchen table. A record of transactions. At the top is my name. I never made any transfers. To him, all of them. I recall thinking, this isn't possible. It's the sort of thing that other people experience. Those who disregard the warning signs, those whose accounts are not locked, people who trust too freely. Then it dawned on me. That's me. Have you ever had an instance where your body understands something before your head does? As if you're in a burning house and haven't yet smelled the smoke. In my own kitchen, in my own house, I was sitting there with a piece of paper that said, "You're never safe here." People often say that the worst thing is that it wasn't just about the money. It wasn't. Realizing that he had observed me mourning my father and losing myself in old voicemails and letters was the worst part. And nevertheless made a move. He waited for me to stop talking until I was little, until I stopped making weekly checks on the account. Then he accepted it, gradually, as if it were his, as though I wouldn't notice. The worst part is that I didn't. Not until I had to pay the dreadful vet bill after Milo started throwing up. The following morning, I gave my cousin Ethan a call. He's one of those guys who wears a watch you can see from space and works in financial fraud. He speaks in bullet points. When he heard the second ring, he said, "Liv, you okay?" "No," I replied. "Travis used up everything, including my dad's insurance. Quiet. Send me everything. Bank info transaction history dot account numbers." "Right now," he said in a professional tone before his voice went flat. I could hardly type because I was shaking so much. He advised him to be composed, act normally, say nothing, and go about your life as if nothing had occurred. After all, you're in a combat zone. I got it. As usual, I prepared dinner that evening. Travis claimed to adore pasta with too much garlic. But who the heck knew? When he got home, he said, "Smells good," and gave me a cheek kiss as if nothing had happened. I sat across from him, watched him eat, nodded, and grinned. I had no feelings. Not anger, not despair, static, as if I were looking at him through a glass window. That night, I believe a piece of me died. The part that still held out hope that perhaps there was a misunderstanding, that perhaps he panicked, or that he made a stupid phone call. Then I recalled what Carol had said. We all concurred. And I was aware. This was not an act of panic. It was a plan, a group performance. And I was the idiot that showed up at a heist with refreshments. I began to dig over the next few days. Emails, bank notifications I had disregarded, statements, and messages on his phone that I was not meant to read. I discovered more than just theft. A Fowing blueprint was discovered. Monica received a Venmo donation marked Startup Seed. Jenna received a bank transfer labeled consulting fee. Carol received an email from her church verifying that her loan was approved, using my account as security. The worst one comes next. My login information was forwarded to an unfamiliar Gmail address in a 2am email. I went cold. I had previously seen that email on his screen, and he had said it was for some app thing. When I looked up the address, I discovered that Elm Tree Solutions, a shell firm registered to Jenna, was associated with it. What do you sell at Elm Tree Solutions? Nothing. It is a phony investment company and a haven for money laundering. What about my dad's money? It was their initial payment. I didn't throw stuff or yell. I started working on my laptop. I created a hidden folder and called it Fireproof. I began gathering everything inside of it. Screenshots of the transfers, the fraudulent login confirmation. A tape of Travis murmuring to his mother over the phone, "She won't notice. Not yet." I put one in a tea tin, backed it up on two, USBs encrypted everything, and placed the other in a downtown safety deposit box. It was as if I were assembling evidence against an unknown individual. I was aware of his laugh, though, was aware of his coffee preferences, was aware of the scar on his left wrist from the 9th-grade bike accident. And in order to keep me from screaming, he knew just where to stab me. My other cousin Aaron, an ex-fraud investigator who likes to wear blazers at home, was the person I called 2 days later. I whispered, "I need you. This has to do with cheating. No, this is about organized crime. Fraud, identity, theft. My husband. And his family, he did not even hesitate. Send it all to me. Liv, this is serious now. Don't fight or argue. Let's do the digging. You just keep gathering." So I did. When he left it open one morning, I bugged his office, his pickup, and the couch in the living room. I listened to the recordings every night, and it grew darker each night. It should be sent to the Shell account. The signature is being handled by Jenna. We're fine as long as Olivia doesn't say anything. It wasn't a transfer or a recording that broke .me. It was something easy. Travis was grinning at his phone when I saw it. I looked over and saw a photo of him holding hands with someone on a beach. A blonde woman, perhaps in her early 30s, laughing as if she were at home, as stated in the caption. My forever. I didn't yell. I didn't ask. I simply went upstairs. The door was locked. The pillow he used to give me a goodnight kiss was also where he sobbed. The collapse was that. The emotional tumble. Since I become aware of. He did more than simply steal my money. He stole my identity. He sold someone else a replica of me, complete with a sad widow, dead wife, and passive bank account. She also purchased it. Aaron texted me early the following morning. Sit tight. We're building the case. We've had enough. I sipped my lukewarm coffee, nodded to myself, and gazed out the window as if I hadn't just discovered that my marriage was a scam. I experienced a sense of detachment, numb, as if I had struck the ocean floor, and everything was far away and muffled above me. However, a thought began to emerge even amid that silence. A persistent, piercing thought that persisted. They believe me to be weak. They believe that I won't fight. They're mistaken. I got a black leather folder for myself the day I made the decision that I wouldn't break. I just needed a basic zip case that I could slip the truth into and carry around without trembling. I began printing everything out of it. Bank records, contracts that were forged. I received phony emails from Travis's account to mine that said I had approved the transfer. Even a phone conversation transcript between Monica and accountant #2. Each paper was like a fragment of my spirit affixed to a murder scene, and my only thought was, this whole thing was premeditated. Travis was completely unaware of my transformation. He was too occupied. Too many nights spent at work late, too many hasty Fort Worth visits. When his phone chimed and he thought I wasn't looking, he smiled too strangely. It wasn't difficult, so I started acting foolish. For years, I had done it. Hey, sweetie, tell me about that charge on our joint card. Oh, just Monica's stuff and a consulting invoice. I would pretend to believe him, nod, and stir the pasta. He gave them to me as presents, and each phrase was a nail in his own coffin. I suppose he never realized that the woman who subtly prepares his dinner each night might also be recording his entire collapse in a folder labeled Truth. Then the unexpected thing happened. That was the moment when everything fell apart. An envelope was the first thing that happened. White, plain, and discarded like junk mail on the kitchen counter. It wasn't junk, though. The recipient was Carol Delaney. Within, an unfiled draft of a court document that is incredibly real. Financial guardianship petition. Olivia Sanders is the subject. Reason, emotional collapse. Mental instability after her father's death. And incapacity to handle personal finances. I read it twice, 3 times. I was having trouble breathing. They weren't merely robbing me. Legally, they were attempting to deem me incapable. In order for them to seize everything, not only the inheritance, my assets, my future, everything in my name. What's the worst? A note from a psychologist dated March 2020 was attached to the letter. The issue is that in 2018, the psychologist retired. Is that a fake signature? Forged? Mine? Like acid in my throat? I could feel the anger slowly rising. Money was no longer the focus of this. It was war. I sent Aaron a text that evening. They're attempting to control me legally. He called 10 seconds later. Now send everything. Then I sat in the dark, feeling like a character in someone else's life. After scanning every page and sending it, how on earth did I get here? In less than 7 months. A grieving daughter will be a legal target. Aaron returned the call 2 days later. He sounded different, tighter. Like if there were a problem, it's not all there is. What more? This is more complicated than we initially believed. I need you to drive to Dallas and meet someone. I simply packed my bag, secured the house, and took Milo with me without arguing. The road.me, and my hands gripping the wheel as if they were using muscle memory to hold my life together, made for a peaceful trip. When I arrived, I was shown into a simple office with beige walls, a folder on the table, and a man wearing a badge that read Henson, Financial Crimes Division. He pulled it open. He introduced himself as Ryan T. Vickers, an independent financial advisor with headquarters in Houston, or at least that's the name. I blinked, perplexed. He moved the picture over the table. I gazed at it. Travis, same grin, same face. A different name, your husband, Ryan Vickers, is 39 years old, has been under surveillance in 3 states, has been involved in multiple online scams, real estate fraud, and shell companies. My tongue adhered to the roof of my mouth, preventing me from speaking. Henson stated, "He is a professional con artist, and you are not his first victim. He didn't just steal your money. They presented everything to me in a terrifying manner. The phony investment company, the loans that were obtained using my name, the transfers that take place abroad." Then the picture appeared. On a Cancun beach, Travis or Ryan, for that matter, is seen strolling hand in hand with a blonde woman, grinning. I'm laughing. "Wearing the ring I got him for our wedding," Henson explained. "Her name is Stacy Delmare. She believes she is his wife. He told her that his real wife, you, died in an automobile accident. He used your dad's insurance money to buy her a car." I felt sick to my stomach. I believed I'd experienced pain previously. However, this was something different. As if I had vanished, changed, copied and inserted into another person's falsehood, Henson remarked. He made a whole life out of your tragedy, and Stacy only learned about it last week. Is she okay? I swallowed. She is prepared to testify, and she is furious. I went home in a daze, without speaking or crying. I just went to the bank, paid for a second safety deposit box, and took out all I had left. I strolled around the home, as if I were bidding farewell. And I was. There was no such man as the one I married. I attempted to fit in with the family, but they didn't want me. They want entry. And now, I was now impervious to flames. It wasn't a loud or spectacular confrontation. It was clinical and quiet, like the last scene in a slow, burning film. He emerged from the shower with his hair dripping and a towel wrapped around his waist. You haven't fallen asleep yet, he inquired. I simply stared at him without responding. For a long time. Next? I said, what would you do if someone took your identity, depleted your bank accounts, faked your signature, and claimed that you didn't need it? 1 beat. 2. He froze. He questioned. What are you talking about? I got up and made my way over to the table. The red folder was pulled out. Dropped it with a jarring thump against the glass. Every single fraudulent transfer. Login. And forgery. Backed up, archived, and sent to 3 different agencies is included in this. He remained silent, pale, just gazed. I muttered, I know who you are. It's Ryan Vickers, not Travis or my husband. He tightened his jaw. He opened his mouth. However, nothing was revealed, I answered. Don't even try to deny it. Your scam is over. I then left through the door as I put my glass down. The last sound I heard was the ice clinking. The courtroom did not meet my expectations. No drama, no grandeur. It's the kind of place that humbles everyone, with cold tile floors and unyielding benches that hurt your spine if you sat for too long. Even those who lie, even predators. I arrived at 9:30 for the hearing, but I couldn't stay still, so I just walked Milo in slow circles outside before giving him to Aaron's wife, who volunteered to keep him for the day. Tension was thick, and everything was quiet within. The silence that falls before a tempest. They filed in as a group, as if they still believed that the family had some significance. Ryan, sometimes known as Travis, had his hair slicked back, like he was still playing the husband in a movie starring another woman, and he wore a gray suit without a tie, with her lips squeezed into a tight line and her hand gripping a Bible as if it would destroy everything she had signed. Carol entered behind him. Monica couldn't look me in the eye, so she followed me inside with sunglasses. The wild card. Jenna finished last. She didn't sit with them, though. She approached and took a seat beside me. Nobody had to say anything. It was all in that one motion. Gavel dropped as the judge walked in. Names were read. And the case began. Financial conspiracy, identity theft. Fraud, and forgery. It was like a weight being taken off my chest with each phrase. Then, the twists began to tumble in a domino fashion. Jenna was the first to stand, her voice clear, her hands shaking. Although I didn't know everything, I helped. I transferred money to Elm Tree Solutions, thinking it was a family investment, not realizing it was Olivia's money or that it had been stolen. I want to testify as a cooperating witness. Travis winced. Carol paled, like she was buffering. Monica blinked. Then Stacy entered, the beachside blonde who mistakenly believed she was a wife. She removed her sunglasses and spoke in a flat, sharp voice that sounded like steel after a storm. Her eyes were bloodshot yet concentrated. I co-owned an account he used to launder funds, so I didn't know, but I now know. He told me his wife died, showed me a death certificate, and claimed the insurance money was his. She gestured toward Travis. He is not who he claims to be. Do you have any idea what shame looks like when it eventually gets there? It isn't noisy. It isn't even a response. There is stillness and silence. Similar like a mask melting off a person who is unaware of the face underneath, without his attorney's consent. Travis Ryan rose to his feet. It was Mom's idea. Carol started it. Monica knew. Jenna helped. We didn't act without the family's decision, he added, his voice breaking. You blame me, Carol exclaimed. You instructed me to transfer the funds. I was unaware of the frauds. Mom, you signed the loan forms. I mistook it for the church. You said it was a business investment, but I didn't even see the accounts, Monica stated as she stood up. You faked Olivia's emails! You claimed she was too weak to ever defend herself, Jenna yelled. The courtroom blew up. The gavel was slammed by the judge. Order! I'll clear this room after one more tantrum. I remained silent and sat motionless. On their own, they were tearing each other apart. Then a man in the rear got up. He was a federal agent, wearing a dark suit and glasses. We are submitting the following charges. Your Honor, identity theft, financial fraud, and document fabrication, money laundering conspiracy. Attempted seizure of guardianship on the basis of fabricated psychological documentation. Accompanied by 2 collaborating witnesses and accompanying documentation, he gave me a heavy folder. The magistrate turned the pages. Travis took a hard seat. He had trembling hands. Carol's eyes were empty as she looked straight ahead. Monica broke down in tears. Jenna simply dropped her head. After that, I don't recall much. The room seemed to have lost its oxygen. I had to hold on to the bench's edge to keep myself upright as if the entire world had tilted slightly. Not because I was afraid. However, it was genuine. They had stolen everything, lied to me, made up my name, and attempted to ruin my life. And they nearly got away with it. But here we were. Furthermore, they weren't getting away with it. Jenna came up to me outside on the courthouse steps after the hearing. Her face was smudged. It was real, not fake tears raw. She extended an envelope. I don't want anything from that mess, including the money I got as my cut. I accepted it, not because it corrected any wrongs, but because it was a start, a tiny bit of impact. The sentences arrived 6 weeks later. Travis entered a guilty plea. No drama, no trial. For the first 9, it was just paperwork and 18 years without parole. Carol's defense pointed to her age, but the judge didn't bat an eye. Carol was charged with 3 felonies: forgery, conspiracy, and giving false financial testimony. Monica received penalties. Jenna received probation as a result of her complete cooperation. And me. I shifted. I moved out of Charleston, sold my house, and bought a small, quiet 3rd-floor apartment in Asheville, North Carolina. Without an elevator, I now take Milo for a morning walk, sip coffee outside on the balcony, paint occasionally, work as a freelancer whenever I feel like it. Nobody here is aware of what transpired, and that's what matters. I received a parcel a few weeks ago. No address for return. There was a card inside. I appreciate you not making me feel insignificant. It was only when I saw your eyes in court that I realized how profound the lie was. I'm currently rebuilding, Stacy, after holding the card for a while. I put it on my bookshelf not as a memento. I would like to remind you about how almost I lost everything and how I failed to do so. Since I retaliated, I made a final trip back to Charleston 6 months after the verdict. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want to ever pull into that driveway again, and I didn't want the tires to remember. I parked a block away from the house. It was one of those coastal mornings when the sky isn't sure whether it's summer or October. It was warm and windy. I used to believe that this was my safe haven, and I stood in front of the house with the keys in my hand. The wooden door, porch swing, and cracked corner on the 3rd step were all the same. It was just walls now. A home filled with blueprints, echoes, and silent betrayals. I stayed out of the house. I simply gave the keys to the real estate agent, who was standing at the curb, and locked the door behind me. Did it sell? I inquired. 3 weeks on the market. Young couple, newlyweds, she said with a smile. Naturally, back when I believed that love was safe and that I had gained something simply by being picked. I nodded as I watched them stroll up the path hand in hand, just like Travis and I used to do. I hoped that they would never learn what this house had witnessed. Naturally, the story spread, appearing in local newspapers, financial websites, and even a podcast program about everyday frauds. People enjoy stories that are cautionary and have a happy conclusion. However, that doesn't exist. Justice is paperwork. It's dull to heal. Freedom, the silent part. No liars have the keys to the modest apartment I moved into in Asheville. It's on the 3rd level, with wood flooring and large windows. The good type of silence, the kind you earn, greets me when I wake up. I occasionally paint, make my coffee slowly, and have taken up some freelance design work, again, nothing big. Just enough. Just mine. I'm no longer called soft by anyone. Not because I raised my voice. However, I stopped elaborating. Since sentence. I haven't heard from Carol, Monica or Travis, and I don't anticipate doing so. I didn't respond to Jenna's one letter, which had a brief apology and no justifications. Stacy sent me a thank you email via a burner account, stating that she is currently working 2 jobs, living modestly and recovering. I was honest with her, you don't deserve my blame because neither of us knew. We aren't actually pals. However, we made it through the same deceit. Nobody wants for that bond, but once you have it, you get it. I'm occasionally asked if I have any regrets. If I could go back and alter it, my response: no, I would never want to experience that year again. However, regret is the result of wishing I hadn't seen the truth, which I don't. Even if it is painful, I would rather know. Because right now, I now know what not to believe. The sound of manipulation behind a laugh, the appearance of fraud wearing a wedding band, how a lie feels when it says, I love you, while holding your hand. I sat on my balcony last night with a blanket around my shoulders, Milo dozing out at my feet, and a cup of tea that I never finished. I gazed at the mountains. Very quiet, no acting, no noise. And I came to the realization that I will no longer wait. Not awaiting selection, not waiting to be validated. I'm not waiting for excuses that me, the one who walked carefully around Travis and pleaded to be heard, is no longer there. As soon as I left the courtroom with my head held high and my truth zipped into a black leather folder, she departed. Do you understand the true meaning of healing? The speeches aren't it. Not the innovations. Not the Sunday night motivational sayings. It moves slowly. There is silence. When you're folding your clothes while listening to music, you realize that you didn't give him any thought during the day. It's not recoiling when you pass the brand of coffee he used to drink when you're at a grocery store. It's feeling content rather than empty when you're by yourself. Freedom used to feel like fireworks to me, like a glorious moment where I screamed from a cliff. However, that isn't it. This is what freedom is. Peace over evidence. Silence is preferable to pleading. Every single time you choose me, the narrative stops there. No cheers, no plot of retaliation, no flawless resolution. Only me, alive. I'm still here. And lastly, mine.